We're excited to have an opportunity to speak more with you about what the Sea-Tac Airport master plan is about and how we can help you create comments that we can give to the Port of Seattle so that they can take the consideration in of the residents of Burien, Sea-Tac, and Des Moines. So just as an overview, the three cities of Burien, Sea-Tac, and Des Moines back in 2018, over 8 years ago, actually created an interlocal agreement with the interest in reviewing and commenting on the environmental review process, analysis, and documents of these that the port was preparing for the master plan, the Sustainable Airport Master Plan. At that time, we had 4 partners. We also had Normandy Park was a partner city to that ILA. They have since backed out, but the 3 cities of Sea-Tac and Des Moines and Burien have still banded together. We're still working together, done a lot of great work. So tonight... We would ask if anybody needs Spanish support. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Devin. I did want to find out if we need anybody with any translations needs. We do have an interpreter here for Spanish, if that could be of use. Yeah. Great. Thank you, Devin. Appreciate that reminder. So, 2018 we started this. It's been a really long haul. And in fact, I was looking at the document today, and there's only one person that signed that document that is still working for any of the cities. So times have changed, people have changed, but the commitment has not changed, the commitment to represent our communities. That ILA has been updated numerous times over the years, but we've kept that commitment. Tonight we do have representatives here from all 3 cities to speak with you and tell you a little bit more about the program. And I've been joined today by Zach Shields with the city of Sea-Tac. Zach's senior planner. And we have Rebecca Deming, the Des Moines. She's the community development director for the city of Des Moines. And I'm Liz Stead, and I'm the community development director for the city of Burien. So we've been working a lot together, and I can't tell you how much I've appreciated having that partnership amongst the 3 cities. It's just been invaluable. I do also want to take one moment and introduce the mayor of Burien, who's with us tonight. Mayor Moore, could you stand? Thank you. And I'd also like to introduce Commissioner Jessica Ivey, or she's our Planning Commission chair. So, thank you both for coming, and thank you, all of you. We really appreciate it. I was a little bit afraid earlier that we were going to throw a party and nobody was going to show up, so really appreciate you're here. So Zach and Rebecca and I will be dividing up the slides. We'll each have a little bit of time with you, and then after the presentation, we will go to these different boards and we'll be available to talk more in depth. And we'll also have a station set up over here to make public comment if you so wish, and I'll remind you of that all at the end. Right now, just going through the agenda of what we're going to do tonight. First, we're going to have an overview of what is SAMP, what does it mean, and what are some of the things. We're going to talk about the draft environmental impact statement, the highlights, maybe lowlights, but we'll hit some of those. We're also going to talk about what are the next steps in the process, the public comment process, which is where we're at right now, and then we'll have our open house. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Zach from Sea-Tac, and he'll talk to you a little bit about the next areas.
Thank you, Liz. Nice to meet you all. My name is Zach Shields. I am a senior planner with the city of Sea-Tac, Washington. As you can probably tell by my accent, I am not originally from Washington. I am one of those transplants here, so thank you for having me and my wife. I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about the Sustainable Airport Master Plan's 31 near-term projects. Just giving a brief overview of the SAMP and the environmental review process, as Liz touched on. There's several areas that city staff and technical consultants have concerns about the completeness of the DEIS analysis. This map shows the collection of projects evaluated as the SAMP near-term projects. And it's important to recognize this proposal is not a single construction project. It's a coordinated program, of terminal, airfield, cargo, fuel, roadway, utility, and the supporting infrastructure projects that are distributed throughout the airport property and into the city of Sea-Tac. That distinction matters because the environmental review that we're asking for, that it shouldn't evaluate only the impacts of one single project action known as SAMP. It's actually 31 projects. And, quick note, you're going to hear terms like EIS and DEIS and FEIS. For our purposes tonight, let's just think of those as interchangeable terms. It doesn't really make a difference in terms of the environmental impact of a project like this, or 31 projects like this. How do I advance? Sorry, guys. So this chart summarizes the port's conclusions across environmental topics that are evaluated in the draft environmental impact statement. Most impact areas are characterized as having no significant impact or as having impacts that can be addressed through regulatory compliance or mitigation. Surface transportation is identified as having a significant impact requiring mitigation. That is the only area that the port agreed to in the development of SAMP in terms of mitigation. The cities are examining the technical basis for these conclusions, and a conclusion that an impact is not significant must be supported by sufficient analysis with disclosed assumptions and mitigation commitments that are specific enough to evaluate. One recurring concern in our review is that some mitigation details are deferred. They're deferred until later permitting, later design, or further interagency coordination. That makes it difficult for the public and affected jurisdictions to determine whether the identified impacts will actually be avoided or reduced or mitigated. And I think this is where Rebecca takes over.
Thank you. I'm Rebecca Deming, Community Development Director at the City of Des Moines. The port identifies 5 different primary needs for these near-term projects. As you can see, we highlighted different terms that's used throughout the document. Insufficient passenger terminal capacity to accommodate the projected passenger level efficiencies. Insufficient facilities to accommodate projected cargo level efficiencies. Non-compliance with Federal Aviation Administration, which I'll just use FAA moving forward. Airport design guidelines. Excessive aircraft delays on the airfields and insufficient airfield capacity, and lack of fuel storage to meet projected demand and to meet the port's Sustainable Aviation Fuel Initiative. And I'll apologize, I did my best to get rid of as many acronyms as possible, but I'm sure I'll miss some, so feel free to ask me after. So as was mentioned, we're here in the comment review period on this environmental review timeline. We'll talk a little bit more at the end about what's next and when this is due, but we're basically at the release of the EIS for public review, for agency review, and commenting. So with the comparison of the growth, this works on this one? Okay, yay! So you can see where they have their 2023 here, future demand forecast unconstrained, and then their proposed action constrained scenario, and basically this middle part is where they're saying those are the potential impacts of these near-term projects. And so then you can still see the no action, which still has growth, but that's their no action baseline for their environmental document.
I'm sorry, can you explain that a little bit better? I don't understand.
I think we'll explain it a little bit as we get into our concerns, because that's a concern we have as well. It's basically they're basically saying that because the airport will grow, whether they do the project or not, they're using that as the baseline for the environmental review, if that makes sense. Oh, I skipped one. Sorry. So as I said, the key concepts include demand, growth, capacity, and delay. Demand is the amount or volume of aircraft, pilots, or passengers who want to use the facilities. Growth is the increase in total operations, takeoffs, landings, cargoes, or passengers within a specified period. And capacity is the number of operations, takeoffs, and landings that can be conducted without exceeding a specific amount of delay. And then delay, the difference between the actual aircraft arrival or departures and the scheduled arrival or departure time. Delay increases as demand reaches capacity. So then I'm going to get into our key impact areas. I am going to note that we were just, like everyone else in the public, given a 60-day comment period, and we're not even at the end at this point. So all of these are still based on our review to date. So I just want to put that caveat in there with all of these boards and his comments is based on our review to date. So the city and staff consultants reviewed the DEIS for air quality related scenarios, including NEPA air quality and greenhouse gas report, the SEPA air quality and human health risk assessment technical report, and the Chapter 4 impact and mitigation discussions for the 31 NTPs or near-term projects. We looked at it in terms of the adequacy and completeness of the DEIS, evaluation of criteria pollutants, greenhouse gas emissions, and human health risks to communities near the airport. A major concern we have throughout the EIS, including air quality, is that the no action alternative elevates the baseline comparison by including substantial future passenger and aircraft operations growth, recently constructed or future projects, and continued airport infrastructure changes. This approach is what gives the EIS such a small incremental increase, therefore understating the true impact of the near-term projects. Additionally, during our review, we found that the EIS relies on older modeling versions, does not include construction period modeling, and uses very limited monitoring data from sensors near the airport. Ultrafine particles and hazardous air pollutants were either excluded or minimized, citing that they are not federally regulated criteria, but SEPA has a broader mandate and assessment should be included. The EIS relies on air quality standards as the threshold for significance, but this is insufficient under SEPA. You can see this is a repeating theme. The Washington State Administrative Code, or WAC, requires consideration of probability, severability, reversibility, geographic extent, public health, sensitive populations, uncertainty, and related factors. This evaluation needs to be done for the communities adjacent to the airport. The greenhouse gas review determined that the EIS removed or failed to adequately restore qualitative climate analysis under SEPA after federal NEPA-related climate analysis was removed from the final environmental assessment. Washington SEPA obligations are independent of federal regulatory rollbacks, and that the port's own SEPA resolutions requires a multi-factor GHG significance assessment. And I know that was very technical, but I wanted to make sure I included it. It just deals with basically saying that they need to do all of their greenhouse gas, all of their assessments, even if federal mandates have changed. In terms of hazardous materials and solid waste, our review of the EIS found that concerns relating to contaminated sites, regulatory database review, fuel farm expansion and spill planning, PFAS contamination, demolition-related hazardous materials, and the EIS significance frameworks were all deficient. The EIS does not provide enough evidence to support a no significant impact conclusion for hazardous material and contaminated site impacts. We found that the EIS had undercharacterized contaminated sites, a non-comprehensive contaminated site database review, insufficient analysis of fuel farm expansion and spill response requirements, inadequate PFAS delineation and remediation planning, and the absence of hazardous materials surveys for most buildings and proposed demolition. We did find throughout the document that some things, even within the EIS, with its over 5,000 pages, still said to request the documents if you wanted to see them. And within 60 days, that doesn't give you much time to request, review, and still respond. An example of an unsupported non-significance is site, I'm going to be very specific, site H45 involves an underground storage tank fuel release for which the EIS acknowledges that additional details on contamination extent are unavailable and that no documented action has occurred since 2007. The contaminated sites database is also incomplete because the EIS reportedly assessed sites only through ecology and EPA lists, while additional databases are contemplated under SEPA checklist guidelines. Additionally, the search was performed in 2020, 2021, and 2023, but this document was released in 2026. For the fuel farm expansion, the expanding fuel storage and relocating of de-icing tanks may introduce spill or fire risks, which could trigger EPA facility response plan requirements. PFAS is identified as an area of deferred or uncharacterized risk. The DEIS identifies sites but does not provide complete sampling or delineation, instead stating that additional sampling and regulatory compliance would occur later. Again, as we mentioned, it's a recurring thing that we found. We'll do it later, we'll do it during permitting, we'll do it at a future time. The demolition review states that the port did not, demolition review states that the port did not complete hazardous materials surveys for 8 of the 12 buildings proposed to be demolished, even though the buildings may contain asbestos, lead paint, mercury, or other related materials. Our land use review determined that the EIS land use findings relies primarily on consistency and allowability under an existing interlocal agreement to support the finding of no significant land use impacts. The framing does not clearly show how compatibility issues at sensitive areas, including residential areas, parks, and open spaces, were evaluated across the SEPA record. The review for land use impacts primarily as consistency with adopted plans and policies and allowability under the existing ILA, while Chapter 4 of the EIS similarly states that construction and operation would not be inconsistent with local plans and therefore would not cause significant land use impacts. This approach does not clearly address indirect compatibility effects on adjacent residential parks, resources, including noise, light, construction, disturbance, visual effects, traffic exposure, access changes, and buffer or edge condition performances. For cargo development, the land use analysis does not clearly identify which project elements represent meaningful land use changes or intensity shifts, such as truck activity, hours of operation, lighting, noise, and on-site circulation, or how those shifts may affect sensitive edges to nearby residential uses. For Tub Lake, the EIS relies on consistency with surrounding land uses and non-restriction of park plan objectives, but does not clearly document how the SEPA record evaluates open space adjacency and interface effects such as buffer functions, edge conditions, and public enjoyment. The land use overarching conclusion is that there is insufficient evidence to document land use compatibility at sensitive edges when effects are mediated through noise, transportation, air quality, visual, operational nuisance topics, and that the EIS has not sufficiently defended their conclusion of no significance. The EIS does not provide, in terms of noise, the EIS does not provide sufficient evidence to support the conclusion that noise-related impacts would be insignificant or that no mitigation is warranted. The first major concern that the EIS relies on FAA aircraft noise methodology, including the day-night noise level, or DNL. This framework may be sufficient for FAA and the NEPA purposes, but it may be too narrow for SEPA. There is a substantial population and housing exposure within the expanded 95 decibel contour, even under the DNL requirement. The 2032 action alternative would expand that decibel contour by 0.15 square miles, adding 337 houses and 824 people. And the 2037 action alternative would expand the contour by 0.66 square miles, adding 1,851 housing units and 4,439 people. That this expanded contours includes noise-sensitive facilities such as schools, places of worship, nursing homes, libraries, childcare facilities, and single-family homes and multifamily homes. This increase in noise exposure will result in higher levels of annoyance, interruptions in conversations and leisure activities, sleep disturbance. Exposure to aircraft noise has also been recognized as impeding learning and affecting health, especially for susceptible populations, including children and the elderly. The noise protocol itself recognizes that noise contours depend on operation, fleet mix, time of day, aircraft operations, runway use, and flight routes, and that variations can cause marked change in noise patterns. With more time, the city would be able to do more research into this analysis. The environmental impact statement does not identify any mitigation to identify increase in noise exposure. Instead, it references the ongoing Part 150 update, which is both voluntary and in progress. Additionally, the Part 150 limitations may not fully mitigate all the noise impacts to residents under the flight path. In terms of traffic, the EIS contains significant deficiencies in scope, disclosure, mitigation, and commitments. The principal deficiencies including only PM peak analysis, unvalidated base year calibrations, under prediction, extreme ramp, terminal delays, unmitigated WSDOT controlled intersection, asymmetric signal timing assumptions, and deferral of mitigation terms to post-SEPA agreements, absence of demand-side alternative analysis, absence of construction phasing analysis, and construction traffic mitigation management plan. Absence of plan consistency determination, lack of cumulative analysis beyond 2037, pedestrian safety omissions, inflated no action baseline as we previously mentioned, and missing system level freight, transit, and emergency response summaries. The transportation analysis evaluates only weekday PM peak hour, even though the airport activity includes AM departures, early morning cargo demand, late evening passenger activity, and weekend peaks, that this may fail to capture worst case airport related conditions. The base year calibration model observed 2019 volumes, then applied a blanket scaling up factor without adequately resolving whether the under prediction was due to trip generation, trip distribution, or model time and day allocation. So basically, due to COVID and some other things, they took one time and then just did a general scale up. We don't know if that scale up is appropriate or not. Multiple WSDOT controlled facilities are identified where WSDOT, or Washington Department of Transportation, is not requiring mitigation despite forecast degradation, and SEPA obligations are independent of whether WSDOT wants, whatever their permit position is. The intersection impacts may be understated because signal timing optimization is assumed only in the proposed action scenario, but not the no action. This should be consistent. It is also missing the qualitative discussion of community impacts from added delays, queues, idling, transit delay, cut-through traffic, and emergency access interference. What mitigation does exist is deferred to future agreements, and for at least one location is framed as just a proportional payment rather than committed physical improvements and performance outcomes. Therefore, there is no commitment to physical improvements, performance standards, construction triggers, deadlines, funding sources, and monitoring or enforcement mechanisms with these mitigation measures. In terms of water resources, the EIS lacks specific mitigation and performance standards for wetlands, streams, buffers, and stormwater. The EIS generally states that the impacts would be mitigated through avoidance and minimization, restoration of temporary disturbance, stormwater BMPs or best management practices, I missed that one in my notes, and future compensatory mitigation planning, but does not include a conceptual mitigation plan, identify specific mitigation sites, or establish performance standards, or commit to a compensatory mitigation approach. The permanent impacts requiring mitigation of approximately 0.79 acres of wetlands, 2.66 acres of wetland buffer, and less than 0.02 acres of stream, and 0.12 acres of stream buffer. The mitigation ratios and acreage calculations alone do not demonstrate adequate location compensation because the EAS does not identify the select mitigation mechanisms, site locations, performance standards, or monitoring requirements needed to determine whether or not the no net loss of aquatic resources functions would be achieved. The near-term projects would increase impervious surface with project drainage subbasins by approximately 74.43 acres, and 5 subbasins would experience disproportionate increases. The EIS does not provide enough information to determine whether proposed stormwater mitigation would protect downstream aquatic environments because it lacks enforceable, performance-based standards such as measurable success criteria, monitoring thresholds, compliance metrics, or corrective action requirements and adaptive management triggers. The impacts and mitigation memo provides a backbone for conceptual mitigation plan, but does not provide a clear mitigation method or performance standards. Without performance standards, mitigation progress cannot be measured, and the project cannot be held accountable to the no net loss policy established by the Corps and ecology. For biological resources, the biological evaluation underestimates potential effects on aquatic species by relying on lack of information about low-level contaminant effects. Additionally, the EAS should address emerging contaminants and should detail off-airport and downstream effects on municipal stormwater systems, streams, wetlands, floodplains, and receiving waters. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. That was a lot of information, and I know it went really quickly, so we will be at the boards and able to talk through some of this as well after the presentation, but we wanted to get out as much as possible. So I'm switching gears a little bit to talk about the public comment process. So we are almost at the end of the allotted public comment time period. It is going to end July 21st, 2026, so 1 week from today. So thinking about if you want to make comment on your own, we're going to provide you with some guidance for some language that you could use. It will be online. We also have some printed versions back here. So that if you wish to take some of that and use that, we can do that. The comments will be submitted through the website, the guidance on the SAMP website. It does tell you, I think fairly clearly, how to make comments, and they have made that pretty easy. So that should be usable, and we have that template that we're providing as well. The comments and concerns that you expressed to staff today will not be being relayed to the Port of Seattle specifically. So I want to make sure that you understand this is not going to the Port of Seattle. However, if we make any public comments from our own cities, we would certainly add in some of the themes that we're hearing tonight. On that note, we are putting together an extremely substantial response from the 3 cities. So we will have a very in-depth, very technical, very legalese comment letter back to the port that we will be submitting prior to that date as well, to also help preserve the interests of our residents in our community. So what does it mean to provide what we call meaningful comment? So when you think about your meaningful comments, it really is about making your voice heard. Get the comments in, make sure they hear what those impacts are. Ensure they're submitted in time. July 21st, 4 p.m. So make sure we get them in time. Focus your comments on your concerns that are specific to the SAMP and DEIS. How the project is going to affect in the growth of operations is going to affect you. What does that mean for your life? Those personal comments where you can tie it back to what is important to you, but also relating to those topics that are covered in the DEIS are very effective. Encourage the port to work with the local jurisdictions where you live. We want to come to the table and talk to the port and talk about what is equitable mitigation for our communities. The DEIS does identify specific impacts in these airport adjacent communities, and specific mitigation plans need to be established so that we can actually account for these impacts. And also encourage the use of supplemental noise metrics. That's one area where we really found that we just don't have enough information from the analysis provided by the port. So thinking about what are the next steps, we've gone through a lot so far, as I mentioned earlier. This, our allegiance or alliance started in 2018, so it's been a long road. But in 2025, now we're doing the draft EIS. They will be issuing the final EIS, the Environmental Impact Statement, in 2026. So at that point, we will have further opportunities to engage. And then essentially after 2027, somewhere in there, the commission will be taking action on this and either approving or not approving. There will be an appeal period where the cities and individuals will need to make a decision as to whether they have adequately responded to our comments that we have given for the draft. So we've still got more ahead of us, more work to do, which we will continue to work on. And lastly, I just want to thank you for listening tonight. You've been such a great, respectful audience, and we really appreciate it. I will tell you that these two especially have put so much time and effort and energy into learning this material and trying to be able to represent all of you as well as we can. So I appreciate you all taking the time out of your lives tonight to join us. We are going to close now. We will be available to answer questions at the boards. We'll move some of those chairs out of the way so people can mill around a little bit. I do also have one more note. We will be putting on the websites of our various cities tomorrow. We will be putting the comments, the templates that we have provided and created. We will also be putting copies of these boards on there so that you can refer to those and share those with anybody, any of your neighbors, anyone else that has interest. Yes, a couple of questions?
Back to slides, the one that had suggestions on the meaningful comments.
It's on the handout.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Yes,
May I give a short comment?
please, come on up. How would I say no to the mayor? Of course.
Well, I just want to say, yes, I am the mayor of Burien. My name is Sarah Moore. I'm the mayor of Burien. I'm also the chair of the Burien Airport Committee. I'm also just an ordinary mortal. And these are superheroes. I'm so honored to have you among us. I have been trying to wrap my head around this information from the minute it came out. I've been explaining it to myself in people-sized pieces. The SAMP is about a bunch of projects that the airport is doing so that it can meet the expansion that it's projected. I've been trying to put it to myself in the simplest ways that I can, and to hear them just come up and this is a tour de force, and I just appreciate you so much. And please, when you're moving around the room and making your comments, show your appreciation as well.
Thank you.
Look, I do have one other comment that I forgot to make. I see a couple hands, but we will take a couple of questions, but mainly we do want to move to the boards. But we also have set up over here 3 computers where they are set to the comment site for the port. So if you wish to make comment tonight through using any of those, we would be happy to assist in any way if you need any assistance, but that is available. Okay, let's just take a couple, sir.
Yeah, this is just a comment about
Sure.
comments. When we did the draft
Yeah.
And went through that process, I actually went out and collected all the comments from all the cities, agencies, EPA, submitted all those to the blogs. They were published. And I can't tell you how many people came up to me and said, oh, I wish I would have seen those before. And I think it's really interesting. If you have a chance to share your global comments, the big package, on Friday this week, so that people could see them. They're incredibly intelligent. They don't need it dumbed down. They need to know what you're saying, and then they get excited. If that's possible, I encourage you to share it earlier than the deadline.
I appreciate that, but I will be completely honest. We are going to be working right up until the deadline to get our comments in. But if we miraculously get ahead of that, we certainly will. I was pretty amazed at how quickly 60 days went, or I use 53 now. So it's gone fast, and we've been working with a lot of consultants, and it's been challenging to get all of the pieces aligned. But I appreciate that comment very much.
Liz, if you wouldn't mind, would you introduce, if you can, the elected officials who
Absolutely. We had a few more come in. I have been told that we have Mayor Yoshiko, Grace Month. No? Oh, Councilmember J.C. Harris is here from the city of Des Moines. Can you stand up? Thank you. So glad you could make it. Standing next to Councilmember Harris, we have Deputy Mayor Garcia from the city of Burien. To my left, I have Councilmember DeVito, also from the city of Burien. And hiding somewhere, there he is, Councilmember Mendez, also from city of Burien. Yes.
Senator.
There you go. And we have our state senator, Tara Wallinger. And lastly, I would like to ask if the airport committee members that are here representing both Burien and Des Moines would be willing to stand up, because I think we need to give them a huge shout out. Thank you so much for your time. You all have put in so much work that has helped inform our work. So we very much appreciate the work you've done, and have enjoyed the collaboration. We've had both of the airport committees meeting together a few times, and there's been a great spirit amongst all of this. We're all in it together, and it's been really positive. So appreciate that. Oh, one last question.
You said a couple of times that we should look at the website. I have a handout, and the only website I see is the Warrington report. Yeah, at the bottom of each of these boards, you'll see a QR code, and on these blue flyers over here, you'll see a QR code too. So snap that with your phone and the URL.
Right, so in case you couldn't hear, we do have QR codes on the boards, and we also have them on the handouts there. And like I said, we'll have this available for tomorrow. So thank you so much. Yes, absolutely. Come on up.
Well, again, I want to say thank you for being here tonight. This is amazing. It's such a complex document that we're all struggling to really understand, but I don't think it takes a lot for us to know the cumulative effect, and that adding cargo and international flights isn't going to have a profound impact on us. So again, thank you for being here and making your voices heard. There's no substitute for the setup they have here, but I did want to let you know that Congressman Adam Smith, myself, and I think they've invited Port Commissioner Ryan Calkins on Saturday at 1 o'clock at Highline College. And it is an opportunity to ask questions and to dialogue about what we're doing at our city, state, and federal level if you're interested. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That's great news, and we really appreciate your support at another level as we go through this process. So thank you. Okay, let's go to the boards, and we will try and move some of those chairs out of the way. So if we're whisking chairs away, don't get surprised, but we'll talk to you over there. Thank you.